My ex. The one who left me broken. They invited her without asking. Then acted like I was the problem. But the truth? The reason they did it? That part still makes my stomach turn. Thanksgiving was mine. That's the only way I can explain it. Out of all the noise and mess of my life, that one day felt like it belonged to me. It was tradition, but not in some stiff, Hallmark card way. It was sweat and noise and music blasting in the kitchen while I basted a turkey with one hand and sipped bourbon with the other. It was warmth. It was control. It was home. Even after the divorce, I held on to it. Clung to it, honestly. Like if I could just keep that one thing the same, then maybe everything else wouldn't feel so hollow. This year was supposed to mark the start of something new. My first major holiday as a single man. My first shot at showing everyone, and maybe myself, that I was okay. Or getting there, at least. I'm 34. Been divorced for just over a year. No shared life left, just a mortgage and a scar where my marriage used to be. I don't talk about it much. Not with my family. They know we split, they know it wasn't great, but they don't know the details. I never sat them down and told them that she stopped touching me, stopped talking to me, started sleeping in the other room. I never told them I found a message, just one, on her laptop, from someone named Drew, asking if she was still up. I confronted her, and she said it was emotional, not physical. That it didn't mean anything. That she was lonely. As if I wasn't standing right there in the same house, just as starved, just as wrecked. But I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I just let it end. She packed up her stuff and moved out 3 weeks later. Quietly. Like we just finished a lease, not 7 years of marriage. So yeah, Thanksgiving meant something to me. I started prepping early, 2 weeks out. Cleaned the oven, picked a stuffing recipe, sent the invites. Mom and Dad, Dan and his wife, Aunt Marie, Uncle Rick, Eric. I even grabbed a bottle of Riesling for my mom so she wouldn't complain. There was this feeling, that maybe I'd come out the other side. That maybe I could own this space again, not as someone's husband, but as myself. It felt good. Not perfect, but solid. I was putting away groceries when I heard it. My phone was on speaker. I was chatting with Eric, just confirming headcount, asking if he was still bringing dessert. And in the middle of listing off pies, he said, casual as hell, "Oh, and I think Laura's coming too, right?" I froze. I didn't say anything. Just stared at the speaker, heart pounding. He kept going. "I mean, I figured you'd invited her too. Or someone did. Maybe Aunt Marie." I picked up the phone. My voice came out flatter than I expected. "Wait, Laura? My Laura?" Eric paused. Yeah. I mean, your ex, yeah. Didn't she come last year?" I gripped the counter. "Yeah. When we were still married." He laughed. A little nervous. "I just figured you knew. Someone said she was coming. I assumed it was cool." I hung up. Not politely. Not with any explanation. Just ended the call and stood there in my kitchen, staring at the floor. The bag of cranberries I just bought rolled off the counter and hit the tile. I didn't even flinch. Someone had invited her. To my house. To my Thanksgiving. And no one had thought to ask me. No one had thought I might need a say in that. I stood there for a long time. Something boiling under my ribs. Not anger yet. Just disbelief. Just that hollow, echoing space where trust used to live. I didn't even realize I was pacing until I nearly tripped over the crate of apples by the fridge. My head was buzzing. Not loud, not angry, not yet. Just stunned. Like something enormous had just shifted in my blind spot. I grabbed my phone and started texting, rapid, clipped messages to my mom, my brother, my aunt. No pleasantries. No warm-up. Just blunt questions I already hated needing to ask. Did you invite her? Is Laura coming to my house? The silence that followed wasn't just silence. It was loaded. Like they were all sitting with their phones in their hands, trying to decide how to answer without making it worse. Or maybe hoping I'd calm down before they had to respond. When the replies came, they didn't make anything better. If anything, they confirmed what I already suspected. "I thought someone told you. It wasn't a big deal. We figured you'd be fine with it." Fine with it. Like she was an extra chair, or a side dish someone brought without asking. Not the person who used to sleep beside me. Not the person who left our marriage like it was just another party she was ready to leave early. I tried calling my mom. I didn't even think through what I was going to say. I just needed her to hear my voice. To know I wasn't okay with this. I wanted her to say it was a mistake, that someone misunderstood, that she'd fix it. But the second she picked up, I could hear it in her tone. That careful, tiptoe voice she uses when she doesn't want to take responsibility. She didn't say much. Just talked around it. Gave me soft words like, inclusive, and, holiday spirit, and, it wasn't meant to upset you. And somewhere in there, she slipped in that awful phrase, we didn't think it would bother you. And that was the moment I felt it. Not just the anger, but the disconnection. That sick, sinking realization that no one had thought to check in with me. That they hadn't just forgotten to ask, they hadn't even considered that I should have a say. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. Then I just stood there, in my own kitchen, surrounded by food I'd been so excited to make, trying to figure out when exactly I became a guest in my own damn life. I kept thinking back to the end of our marriage. The way she stopped engaging. The way she looked through me at the dinner table. That quiet, disinterested apathy that felt worse than yelling ever would have. And now here I was, facing the same blank wall, but from my own family. I didn't get angry right away. It was slower than that. Like frost climbing up a window. It crept in, inch by inch, until suddenly I was cold all over. Later that night, my brother sent a short message. No explanation. Just, it's not a big deal. Don't make this weird. And that nearly broke me. Because that's what they all believed, that I was the one making this difficult. That my discomfort was an inconvenience. That my pain was less important than the optics of a peaceful meal. As if I was being dramatic for not wanting to share bread with the person who gutted me. No one had asked how I was doing. No one had checked if I was ready. They just made a call and assumed I'd roll with it. Like I always had. Like I always do. But something about this, something in me just couldn't bend anymore. I didn't want to be the one holding my breath so everyone else could breathe easy. I stood in the kitchen with the overhead lights too bright and the air too still and felt this deep, silent shift. Not rage. Not sadness. Just, done. The next morning, I didn't even go into the kitchen. I just stood in the doorway with a cup of coffee that went cold in my hand, staring at the half-prepped chaos I'd left behind. There was foil still clinging to the edge of the casserole dish. A bag of onions sat unopened by the cutting board. The turkey, 20 pounds of planning and hope, rested quietly in its pan, thawed and waiting. But I wasn't waiting anymore. I couldn't picture it. Couldn't imagine setting the table, pouring wine, smiling across the room at people who had looked me in the eye and decided my boundaries were flexible. That I could be bent. That I'd fold because that's what I always did, host, smile, accommodate. And the worst part wasn't even Laura. It was knowing how casually they had done it. How naturally they'd slid her back into the rhythm without once wondering if I was steady enough to handle it. I wasn't. Not because I was fragile. Not because I hadn't healed. But because healing doesn't mean letting people stomp back in without warning. I stood there a long time, trying to will myself to care. To salvage it. To muscle through and fake it for a few hours. But every scenario I played in my head ended the same way, me, sitting at the end of the table, trying not to watch her lean in too close to someone who wasn't me anymore. I opened my phone. No draft. No long message. Just a short, firm announcement I sent to the group chat. Thanksgiving is off. I'm not hosting this year. That was it. No justification. No emotional pleas. Just the truth, plain and final. The responses came fast. Some surprised. Some annoyed. A few sent those perfectly polite messages that reek of guilt and fake concern. One even said it was out of character, as if that made it wrong. Exactly. It was. And that was the point. One message from my aunt hit a particular nerve. I'm sorry you feel like you can't be part of the family this year. Not sorry for what they'd done. Not sorry for the assumption or the silence. Just sorry that I was the one pulling away, making it harder for everyone else. I didn't reply. Let them sit in it. A few hours later, I noticed my cousin Eric, who'd casually dropped the bomb in the first place, had gone quiet. Not a word since I cancelled. No check-in. No apology. Nothing. I even saw he'd muted the group thread. That little gray crossed-out bell next to his name felt louder than anything anyone had said. It shouldn't have mattered. But it did. Eric and I weren't just family. We were friends. At least, we used to be. Grew up playing backyard football every Thanksgiving while our parents drank too much wine inside. He was the first person I called when Laura and I got engaged. He gave a toast at our wedding. He cried during it. I remember thinking, damn, he really loves us. He really gets it. And now he couldn't even send a 3-word text. Somewhere in that silence, something clicked. This wasn't about the meal. It wasn't about a turkey or a seating chart or tradition. It was about the way people reveal themselves when you ask them to choose between comfort and accountability. They chose comfort. And I chose to be done pretending it didn't hurt. That night, I packed up what I could, froze the sides, wrapped the bird, threw out the list still taped to the fridge. I wiped down the counters, turned off the lights, and sat in the dark with a beer, finally feeling something close to calm. Not peace. Not yet. But quiet. And for once, it was mine. It happened 2 days later. I was at the grocery store of all places, pushing an empty cart down the produce aisle without knowing what I needed. I wasn't shopping, I was hiding. From the silence, from the fallout, from the fact that my house still smelled like stuffing I wasn't going to serve. That's when my phone buzzed. Just a single message from Matt, a guy I went to college with, someone who knew both me and Laura but wasn't close to either anymore. Hey, didn't know they were a thing now. Wild. No context. Just that. My stomach dropped. I texted back, simple, who? It took him a few minutes to reply. Long enough for my brain to fill in every possible blank. Then it came. Laura and Eric. Saw them on someone's story. Looked cozy. I stopped pushing the cart. Just stood there in the middle of the aisle, the wheels squeaking as they swiveled slightly out of alignment. The noise of the store went fuzzy. My throat tightened. Cozy. That's the word he used. I didn't reply. I didn't move for a while. Just let the weight of it settle in. My ex-wife, my person, the one I built an entire version of myself around, was with my cousin. Not someone random. Not a rebound. Someone I shared blood with. Someone who'd eaten at our table, who called me his brother even when we were grown. I left my cart in the aisle and walked straight out the door. Back home, I opened Instagram. I hadn't checked in weeks. Too much noise. Too many fake smiles. But I searched her name. And there it was, buried in someone's story. Blurry, not even the focus of the photo. But unmistakable. The way she tilted her head when she laughed. His arm around her waist. His face close to hers. Like they'd done this before. Like this wasn't new. And suddenly, everything made sense. The weird silence. The evasive answers. The fake concern. She didn't just show up to Thanksgiving because someone wanted to be nice. She was coming as Eric's partner. That's why no one told me. That's why they all danced around it. Because they knew. And they were afraid of how I'd react. Afraid of the discomfort. The scene. The messy emotions they didn't want to deal with. So they hid it. I sat down on the edge of the couch, my hands trembling. The TV was on but muted. Some home renovation show playing to no one. I couldn't stop staring at my own reflection in the black screen when it cut to commercial. I thought about all the times I'd vented to Eric after the split. The nights we'd had beers out back, me trying to piece myself together, and him nodding along like he understood. Was it already happening then? Was he waiting for his shot? Or did she reach out later? I didn't know which version hurt more. I opened the group chat again, scrolled up, looked at every message. Every quiet little lie dressed up as tradition. Every attempt to make me feel like I was the unreasonable one. And I realized, this wasn't about awkwardness. It was about loyalty. Or the lack of it. They didn't just fail to tell me. They protected them. Her. Him. Their new whatever this is. They bent the truth to shield their comfort and sacrificed mine without a second thought. I wasn't just excluded. I was erased. Rewritten as the problem because I dared to be hurt. I don't remember falling asleep that night. I just remember waking up the next morning and feeling like I didn't belong anywhere. Not in my family. Not in my own house. Not in the version of the story they'd all quietly agreed to live in. And there was a part of me that wanted to let it go. To be the bigger person. To not give them the satisfaction of watching me unravel. But that version of me, he was gone. And someone else, someone quieter, sharper, less forgiving, was taking his place. I didn't plan to confront him. I didn't rehearse some big monologue in the mirror or draft a message I'd never send. I just drove over. No warning. No text. I got in my truck, turned off the radio, and made the short drive to his place. The street felt too familiar. I used to park there on Sundays when we'd all watch football. Laura used to bring guac. Eric used to talk trash. Now I couldn't remember what any of that had meant. His car was in the driveway. I sat there for a second, engine idling, watching the pale reflection of myself in the windshield. My hands didn't feel like mine. My face didn't look like someone who used to trust him. When he opened the door, he looked surprised, but not surprised enough. Just that tight, cautious expression people wear when they've been waiting for something bad to finally show up. "Hey," he said, like it was nothing. I didn't answer. Just walked past him into the living room like I used to, back when we were still cousins in the old sense of the word, before everything got blurred and rewritten. I stood there for a second, then turned to face him. "How long?" I asked. My voice was steady, but low. I could feel my throat tightening already, the burn just behind my teeth. He didn't pretend not to understand. He sat down slowly, like that might calm the room. "A while," he said. No elaboration. Just that. Like it was something small. I nodded. Not because I accepted it, but because I needed to keep myself from shaking. "Since before the divorce?" "No," he said quickly. No. It wasn't like that. She was lonely. After. We started talking, and it just happened. I laughed. It came out hollow. It just happened. He looked up at me. "Look, I know this sucks. I didn't want to hurt you." I stared at him. "You didn't want to hurt me, but you brought her to my house. You let me plan a dinner you knew I wouldn't be able to sit through, and you said nothing." His mouth opened, closed. He shifted like he was trying to figure out which version of the story would get him out clean. "She needed support," he finally said. "We didn't mean for it to be like this. Love is complicated." I could feel the words burrowing under my skin. "It's not about love," I said. "It's about everyone pretending this was normal. About no one giving me the basic respect of telling me the truth. About you, my own family, making me out to be the unstable one because I didn't want to eat stuffing next to the person who broke me." He didn't respond. And that silence. That's when it landed. That's when I knew he wasn't sorry for what he'd done. He was sorry that I found out. I let the weight of it hang there between us. "You made me the villain," I said quietly. "You all did. Because it was easier than facing the fact that what you were doing was cruel." Still, nothing. I turned to leave. As I stepped past him, he muttered something, low, almost instinctual. "I'm sorry you feel that way." I stopped. My chest went cold. That sentence. That coward's apology. It hit harder than anything else. I didn't turn around. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a punch or knock over a chair. I just walked out, got in my truck, and drove away. The whole time, my hands were steady on the wheel, but my jaw was clenched so tight I could hear my teeth grinding. They made me the villain because they couldn't face what they'd done. They didn't want to carry the discomfort. So they handed it to me. Let me be the angry one. The overreactor. The problem. And I carried it. Until that moment. That was the last thing I carried out of that house.